Have you ever seen a loved one fall prey to the beast that is cancer? Not just pictures of strangers, bald from leukemia, smiling with blind hope, but an actual loved one. A brother, sister, mom, dad, best friend, great Aunt Catherine twice removed. Have you seen them as their hair starts to thin and eventually disappear? Their skin and bones begin to wither and weaken until they can't even hold your hand. The hope in their eyes slowly start to dwindle. And yet they hold on so desperately to hope. For me, it was my daughter Elsie. My beautiful, beautiful daughter. Her eyes were pools of spilled honey gleaming in the sunlight. Her hair was fields of wheat, flaxen. Her very soul, the respective Claude Debussy song. She was so young, only 5 years old, so full of joy and hope and optimism. Words couldn't describe my perfect girl. She wasn't just peaceful. She was peace, serenity, tranquility. I believe it to be a cruel fate for cancer to strike its scythe down on people, much less children. Not a cruel fate for the person who gets cancer. No. Their suffering is finite. They live or they die, and regardless of the outcome, their suffering stops. But we, the survivors, die slow, cruel deaths. When our loved ones are ripped away from our arms, they take bits and pieces of our hearts and souls with them. Fragments of our life that we never get back. I had experienced this pain once, when my wife died of cancer 2 years prior. And cancer had returned to rear its ugly head and mock me once more. What a joke. When I first heard her coughing, the thought crossed my mind. What if it happens again? But I tried to stay optimistic. I tried my damn hardest. But after 2 months, I knew something was wrong. What began as a checkup turned into diagnosis too complex for me to understand. Machines that glowed and whirred in strange ways. Strange medicines I couldn't possibly comprehend. Desperate visits and pleas blurred together. The doctor's office, the pastor's office, my office, where I silently pleaded to any god. I used to be religious. I used to believe in God. But what kind of God? Omniscient, all-knowing, all-loving, would allow cancer to exist. I believe that he does exist somewhere. But I don't believe in God in the Christian sense anymore. My hypothesis is that he gave up on us a long time ago and left us to fend for ourselves. Ironic. A Darwinist God. They say eyes are the windows to the soul, that people can hide their feelings and emotions, but the eyes tell all. It's true. I didn't realize until my daughter told me she thought I gave up. I wanted to believe that I hadn't given up yet, that there was a way, somewhere, somehow, and by some miracle. But reality sets in one way or another. She was right. I had given up. It was that day that I called out to whatever god, demon, or spirit would entertain me. It was one last desperate gambit. Whatever I had to give would be worth it if my daughter could live, I reasoned. But reader, you need to understand. When you put that energy out into the universe, something responds. It was the beginning of September. Children's laughter ringing out like bells as my daughter sat in some hospital connected to an IV, eating some disgusting hospital food, only redeemed by slightly better than average Jell-O. I was at home, taking time off from work in case I needed to get to the hospital immediately. But an empty house is louder than a full house. You never realize how much you take for granted. The chatter, the tears, the arguments going from anger to forgiveness to laughter once more. A full house has all of these. A quiet house has nothing. I couldn't stay in an empty house. So I took a walk down by the river. In early September, the air was still hot and thick, the cold apprehension of winter not yet close to setting in. The river was always a place of comfort, a place of quiet contemplation. Please, I silently begged. Whoever can help, please. Then I heard a voice. It was gentle, faint and familiar, kind and warm. My wife, my deceased wife. I turned around, and there she was. Dear, she said. Carrie, is it really you? We don't have much time. I can help. I'm going to save Elsie. You can do that? I said we don't have much time, she replied, with a little edge in her voice I had never heard previously. I was suspicious, but out of dumb, blind optimism, I let her continue. I can help. But she'll lose her eyes in the process. I need you to allow it to happen. Yes, of course, but what can you do? I replied. Flowers are a powerful thing, dear. Thank you, I said. I tagged on an I love you, but only the birds were the ones to hear my words. She was gone. Small white flowers in her stead. Carrie had planted them once more. Mock oranges. Elsie's healing was nothing short of a miracle. The doctors told me that, out of some blessing from God, Elsie's cancer had not only halted, but actually began regressing. The road to recovery should be quick. On the track she was on, she should be back home by the end of September. And it was kindergarten in October. I silently thanked Carrie, from wherever she was. The first night I brought Elsie home, I had the worst nightmare I'd ever experienced. I was always a vivid dreamer. The dreams were, in terms of nightmarish qualities, never here nor there. Hearing the siren's song in a canyon filled with pastel blues and yellows, and other pretty colors, and subsequently drowning, surrounded by those beautiful colors. Zeppelins, crashing and leaving behind wrecks in the golden light of sunrise. My lover dead from the crash, limp in my arms. A past gym teacher wearing his daughter's purple dress because he paid good money for it and he was damn sure gonna make it worth the cost. But this dream was different. I awoke in a field of lavender, Elsie's favorite. And they were beautiful. The sky was bright blue, the sun-high clouds dotting the horizon, but never coming overhead. A breeze passed through the field, causing a quiet commotion among the peaceful flowers. The urge to run free was overwhelming. Not my most entertaining dream for certain, but I liked this place. And it was surely a place to remember and hopefully return. That's when I saw Carrie. The same long flaxen hair, the same honey-hued eyes, the same distinct mole just beneath the left corner of her mouth, the same beautiful white dress she wore when we got married. It was her. Except some animal instinct, long dormant but still prepared, told me that something was wrong. I don't quite have the words to explain it. It was that feeling when you drive late at night and you notice the car behind you has been following you for a little too long. The feeling when you're home alone and you hear noises come from the basement. And even though you know it must be nothing, you can't shake the feeling of something being wrong. It was that feeling. She ran up to hug me. Wherever she stepped, these mock oranges bloomed. "It worked, dear, it worked," she cried. It wasn't excitement in her voice, but rather some cruel attempt at it. "You aren't Carrie," escaped my lips before I had time to think. What do you mean?" the fake asked, feigning confusion. I suppose there's something about the dimensions of dreams that makes one more honest than in their waking life. Perhaps it's the lack of thought. Perhaps it's truth's desire to be free, overpowering the speaker's will. But before thoughts could form, words began as soon as they were concepted. "Who are you?" "Does it matter? Your daughter is safe," the fake said, dropping the facade entirely. "Stop using my wife's face," I demanded. "You mean your dead wife? She's more mine than she is yours, dear, and I thank you to speak to me with respect. I helped you. Now, I will have my recompense." "What do you want from me?" I asked, knowing and yet still fearing the answer. "Her eyes, dear. The child's. Elsie, you call her?" The voice was a mockery of Carrie's, dripping with a concoction of contempt and a sickly sweet sadism. "Can you take mine instead? Please. She has her whole life ahead of her." "No, dear. They have to be hers. It's her life." "Then please, make it quick. Put any suffering onto me, not her." "Oh, no, dear. You have it all mixed up. I won't be taking your daughter's eyes. You will." And she laughed, a cruel mockery of my circumstance. "Excuse me?" I yelled. Even if I wanted to, how was I supposed to keep my emotions in check when presented with a situation like that? Much less her laughing at it. "I told you to speak with me with respect, dear." Her sweet facade dropped for a moment, only for it to return with another laugh. "Fuck you!" I screamed, not pondering nor caring for the consequences. "I'm not tearing out my daughter's eyes. Get the fuck out of my wife's body." "How dare you, brat? I helped you. I did you a favor, and you want to yell at me? All you ungrateful humans just take, and give nothing." Her tone was reminiscent of a mother scolding a child for misbehaving. In a moment, fear possessed my body. My instincts took over. I ran as fast as I could, for as far as I could. When the body of Carrie was a mere speck in the distance, I thought I was safe. I breathed a breath of relief for a moment, thinking myself safe. But there was no escaping the spirit. "Flowers are a powerful thing, dear. They can ward cancer away or attract it directly to you. You have one day to get me my eyes. A bodiless voice whispered into my ears, followed by a cacophony of echoing cackles. The field of lavender withered into a sickly yellow in seconds, the sky clouding over with black clouds, a harsh ray of sunlight directly in my face. I awoke to sunlight in my face, and my daughter, Elsie, in bed playing with flowers. Not just flowers. I recognize these. I got them for Carrie on our first date. Petunias. Hey, sweetie. Hey, sweetie. Where'd you get the flowers from? Flowers are a powerful thing, dear, she replied. For a moment, I thought I was hearing things. And thus I asked her to repeat what she said, to which she in turn repeated. Flowers are a powerful thing, dear. Where did you hear that from, sweetie? The lady who dropped off the flowers. What did this lady look like? I gripped Elsie by the shoulders, shaking her slightly, instilling fear into her little heart. It was evident in her eyes. I let go. I'm sorry, sweetie, but I need to know. What did she look like? Hair like me? Eyes like me? Did she have a mole right here? And I pointed to where Carrie's mole was. Yeah, Elsie said enthusiastically. Elsie never had the opportunity to know Carrie. She died when Elsie was only 3. There's no way her toddler brain could have known what Carrie looked like, especially considering I had taken down all the pictures of Carrie. Remembering was too painful. I looked to the wall to my right. It was the crude outline of a man, black petunias in place of the eyes. Did you do that, Elsie? I drew the man, Daddy, but the flowers were already there. Elsie, sweetie, can you go to your room for a sec? Daddy needs to take care of something. Okay, Daddy, she replied happily, blissfully unaware of the business at hand. When she had skipped out of the room, I turned my attention to the wall. Please, please, I begged. Please, anything but this. And then, miraculously, the petunias began to change form. I don't know if it was some sort of optical illusion or if I was going insane, but they undoubtedly changed. The petals withered away and regrew into yellow flowers, each sporting an uncomfortable number of petals. I searched what the flowers were, hoping they gave me a clue. I found a match. The yellow carnation comes as a pale or blue glow, with a pom-pom-like appearance due to their many petals. Its exact origin is unknown, as cultivation has occurred for over 2,000 years. Tears and eyes are quite prevalent in this flower's origin. The Christians say that when Jesus carried the cross, Mary wept, and from the ground carnations bloomed. In Roman mythology, it is said that Diana came across a shepherd whom she doted on, but the feelings were unrequited, and in anger she ripped his eyes out, springing up carnations where they landed. Carnations describe a range of emotions from love, red or pink, or hatred and rejection, yellow. So be careful when choosing your color of carnation. Hatred and rejection. The yellow carnation represents hatred and rejection. The spirit made her intentions quite clear. As I pondered the yellow carnations in my room, foolishly hoping that the spirit's threats would be empty, Elsie's cough returned. It wasn't even a full day. It's inexplicable, the doctor explained. The cancer disappeared and reappeared all within a day. While the doctor ran tests, I sat in the waiting room, hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. I weighed my options. She's young. She has her whole life ahead of her. It wouldn't be fair to let her die like this. But what would she want? How would you know this is what Elsie would want? Obviously, she would want to live. What child wants to die so young? A child has an entire life. She has an entire life that she hasn't had the chance to live. It isn't fair. Is that what Elsie wants? Or is that what you want? Are you afraid to be alone? What would Carrie say? Carrie isn't here right now, I yelled aloud, disturbing the peace of the waiting room. A string of apologies followed, and I returned to my reflections. Carrie isn't here right now. I need Elsie with me. I need her. And the decision was made. It would be short and quick and painless. I would sneak some sort of anesthetic into her food at dinner. She wouldn't feel a thing. I would make up some excuse that we were playing and she hit her eyes directly onto the table or something like that. I don't know, but I knew that Elsie sure as hell wasn't going to die. The plan was enacted without a hitch. I miraculously found anesthetic for consumer purchase at a store I can't remember. What do the details matter? Maybe the universe realized they made a mistake and wanted Elsie to live. The night was cold. The moon was supposed to be full, but it was obscured by black clouds overhead. The night was completely dark, save for the few dim streetlights that flickered on for a few minutes, then off for a few seconds, then once more. I gripped the knife in my hand, hands trembling. I have to do it. I repeated to myself over and over. I have to do it for her. And yet seeing her sleep so peacefully, blissfully unaware of ordeal that occurred so close to her, and yet so far away, I couldn't disturb it. Every time the knife was anywhere close to her, she smiled or giggled or kicked slightly, and it showed that she was alive. I threw the knife down, landing with a muffled oomph on the carpeted floor. I knelt and silently sobbed. I had to. And yet I couldn't. Carrie appeared in the reflection of the window, gesturing to my room across the hall. I followed. In my room, Carrie materialized. Those honey eyes, the flaxen hair, the mole beneath the left corner of her mouth. You humans can't do a simple task asked of you, can you? She chided, frustration dripping from her tone. I ask you to take one little girl's eyes, and you can't even do that. It's my daughter. I'm sorry. You know what, dear? I'm impatient. I'm so tired of waiting. Do you want me to take your eyes instead? Will that make the god-awful process finish sooner? I couldn't have said yes faster. She directed me to go to sleep, knife beside my bed. And she would do it herself. In hindsight, I shouldn't have listened. I shouldn't have listened to her at all. The prospect of her taking my eyes instead of Elsie's was too good to be true. It was nothing short of miraculous. But miracles, I've learned, do not come without costs. In the dream, there was a field of flowers. Mock oranges. I stood there uneasy, hoping the uneasiness was nothing more than anxiety and anticipation for the whole ordeal to be over. The spirit approached. I assured myself that seeing Carrie's face, even if it wasn't her, would be a good, final sight to see. She held my face in her left hand and the knife in her right. Pain seared in my right eye. In the realm of the mind, the natural hierarchy of the subconscious places stimulus above thoughts. Thoughts are slow. They require multiple nerves to be fired until comprehension occurs, followed by synthesis. Bloom's taxonomy. But stimulus, such as pain, is immediate. Pain is sensed by the nerves and sent to the brain in order for the brain to process it, all in the matter of milliseconds. Pray you never experience the feeling of the optic nerves screaming out in pain, reader. It is far from pleasant. Out of my left eye, I saw her face, twisted in a demented grin, a crude imitation of Carrie's kind smile. The sense of movement, blood, I presumed, crept down from my eye like tears. Carnations bloomed all around us, colors all across the visible spectrum, and then some more. She moved to my left before I even processed the pain in my right eye. I saw nothing. Not black. Black would be too great a mercy. Black would be some stimulus for the brain somehow. No. I wasn't even given the gift of black. It was nothing. I fell backwards onto the ground, too shocked for the thoughts to process. In the dirt, flowers began to envelop me. I couldn't see it, but I knew it. Petunias. They snaked around my arms and legs, around my chest and throat, until not a single inch of my skin remained. The petunias forced their way into my eyes. Rather, they were that once were my eyes. And into my lungs, and my stomach, and my heart, until not an inch of me was completely overtaken. When I awoke, reader, it was nighttime. I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis, I reasoned. In the morning, this would be over. In the morning, I woke up. I went to brush my teeth. I made breakfast. But reader, it wasn't me. I controlled nothing. It was as if I was playing a video game, but the players did not listen to me. As if I was watching a movie, helpless to stop the events unfolding before my eyes. No matter how much I kicked and screamed and made a commotion, I was not in control of my body. Elsie came out of her room. She coughed. "Oh no. Let's take you to the hospital, dear." Dear. I never called her dear. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. Whoever controlled my body winked at me. Reader, do you understand the pain of seconds crawling by? Watching life pass in front of you, and yet you are helpless to do anything about it. Do you understand anything of the agony of watching the wonders of technology grow beyond anything you believed possible? Do you understand the cruel torture that is watching your daughter die before your very eyes? A body controlling you and saying, "I love you," but not letting you yourself say the words? Reader, I pray you never have to know. Some nights I had the tiniest grasp of control. A finger twitch, a nose flare. Something inconsequential and yet a resounding victory for me. May 21st, 2004 was the first day I had control in 3 years. Elsie should have been 7, her 8th birthday soon approaching. The monster that controlled my body was passed out drunk, and my body granted me the sweet, sweet agency to control my own consciousness. I didn't know how much time I had, but I knew what I wanted to do. Sneaking into Elsie's room, seeing the empty bed. She died of cancer days after I lost control, and I couldn't even say goodbye to her myself. I cried. The next time I regained control was June 15th, 2009. 5 years this time. Elsie should have been 13. The body stealer realized I had control sometimes. It became more careful. Today is August 16th, 2020 at midnight when I am writing this, reader. 11 years have passed. Elsie should have been 24 years old now, gone away to college. She's been gone all this time, and I've been stuck in here, in this body. It's fate worse than death, reader. It's hell. Every day, I pray for the sweet release of death upon my soul, regardless of whether I face God, or Satan, or some other deity. Anything would be better than this. I don't know how long I have left, reader. Next time I have control could be years. Decades. Maybe I'll never have control again. But I have a purpose for now. I'm writing as fast as I can, in as much detail as I can, in hopes that I may warn someone. Anyone. I've been figuring this out for the past 16 years, and I've had this all written out and memorized for years now. I want to document my experience, so that hopefully someone mindlessly peruses Reddit, reads this, and remembers this. Hopefully, reader, you do not make the same mistakes I did. Listen to me, reader, for I have learned 2 pieces of advice you must heed. Hold your loved ones close, for your time with them is finite. And never trust the spirit that wants your eyes.
Chronicler here. We here at Creepy Spaghet would like to thank czashi for allowing us to tell their story. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on these terrible tales, and make sure to check out the author in the links below. If you're interested in having your story narrated, be sure to reach out to our humble overseer, as he continues his journey to pull the darkest stories from the infinite depths of the internet. Until next time, fiends. And remember, we are darkness.